Strip away our technology and our tools, and human beings are surprisingly fragile creatures. We don't have thick armor, we lack sharp claws, and we carry no venom. In the wild, we are physically outmatched by almost everything. Yet, imagine finding yourself completely stripped naked, stranded in a freezing wilderness, while a hunting party of armed warriors chases you down for sport. Or picture being isolated in a blizzard, at the very edge of the world, realizing that if you don't cut your own abdomen open, you won't survive the night. Or falling 2 miles out of the sky, directly into the Amazon rainforest, landing entirely alone with a broken collarbone. These 3 historical events push right up against the absolute limits of human mortality. They force ordinary people to face down a physical predator, a failing internal organ, and the hostility of the elements. In 1809, American frontiersmen John Coulter and John Potts were paddling up the Jefferson River. Their hunt for beaver pelts was cut short when hundreds of Blackfeet warriors emerged from the tree line and completely surrounded them. Potts panicked, fired his rifle, and was instantly killed. Coulter pulled ashore, expected the same fate. Instead, his captors took his weapons, stripped him of every piece of clothing, and ordered him to run into the open prairie. He was being given a head start in a human hunt. Sprinting barefoot across sharp rocks and abrasive shrubs, Coulter pushed his body until his lungs burned and blood poured from his nose. Looking back, he saw that one solitary warrior had closed the gap. Unarmed, Coulter stopped his sprint and spun around, raising his bare arms aggressively. The sudden, terrifying sight of a bleeding, naked man charging back at him startled the warrior, who tripped and snapped his spear. Coulter grabbed the broken shaft, killed him, and kept running. To evade the rest of the hunting party, he dove into a freezing river and swam underneath a beaver lodge. He squeezed his face into a small pocket of air just above the icy water and hid there in total darkness until light fell. He then walked over 300 miles across the harsh wilderness for 11 days, surviving on nothing but roots and bark. Coulter proved that when pushed past exhaustion, the human body can generate enough fight-or-flight adrenaline to endure threats and outlast a predator. 50 years later, a completely different threat emerged. In 1961, a 26-year-old Soviet surgeon, Leonid Rogozov, was stationed at a highly remote research base in Antarctica. Months into the freezing, isolated mission, he developed severe appendicitis. Looking at this abdominal diagram, the inflamed appendix sits in the lower right quadrant. With a blizzard grounding aircraft, the pulsing indicates an imminent lethal rupture. Infection would flood his abdominal cavity. Without intervention, the base's only doctor would die. Rogozov enlisted 3 engineers to hold a mirror and hand him tools. At 2 a.m., using only local anesthetics, he cut a 4-inch incision into his stomach. The mirror's reversed reflection was too disorienting, so he had to perform the surgery largely by touch, taking 30-second breaks every few minutes to fight off heavy nausea and vertigo. After nearly 2 agonizing hours of precision, he successfully snipped out the severely infected organ and stitched himself back together. Within 2 weeks, he was back to his normal duties. Rogozov proved that supreme, calculated rationality can override our natural pain receptors and prevent panic, even when our own anatomy betrays us. 10 years after Rogozov's surgery, 17-year-old Juliane Koepcke faced the raw forces of nature. On Christmas Eve in 1971, she was a passenger on a flight over the Amazon that steered directly into a massive thunderstorm, tearing apart midair. Still strapped tightly to her seat, she plummeted 2 miles toward the earth, next morning with a severe concussion, a broken collarbone, and deep lacerations, entirely alone in an ocean of green. She didn't stay still and wait for an impossible rescue. Instead, she leaned on learned intellect. Recalling specific advice from her parents, who were biologists, she knew her best chance was to find a small stream and follow it downstream to a larger river, where civilization usually gathers. For 10 days, she hiked and waded through the treacherous jungle with only a bag of candy to eat. As starvation and exhaustion set in, a deep gash on her arm became severely infected, and botfly maggots began burrowing into her flesh. Nearing the limit of human endurance, she stumbled upon a small boat moored on the riverbank. Remembering another trick from her father, she siphoned gasoline from the engine and poured it directly into her open wound, painfully extracting 30 maggots from her arm. Local lumbermen found her the very next morning. Out of the 92 people on board that flight, Juliane was the sole survivor. By combining primal physical grit with specialized inherited knowledge, she outlasted the elements of the Amazon. John Coulter outran an entire hunting party. Leonid Rogozov outsmarted his own failing biology, and Juliane Koepcke navigated the brutal elements of the jungle. In our safe, modern environments, it is easy to view the human body as highly fragile. We bruise easily, we get sick, and we complain about the temperature. But these events suggest that this fragility is largely an illusion of civilized life. When an ordinary person is cornered by a 0% survival scenario, a deeply programmed force embedded in our DNA takes the wheel. It shuts down fear, overrides pain, and refuses to let the body die. Which of these three domains of survival, the predator, the biological, or the elemental, shocked you the most? Let us know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed these incredible accounts from history, remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and stay alive.